The laughter was still echoing when Dominic Kane made the worst decision of his life. "She's not exactly beautiful," the auction host joked, smiling toward the elite crowd. "But she's quiet, obedient, educated." The ballroom chuckled. Dominic didn't. He didn't need beauty. He needed silence. He raised his hand calmly. "Sold." The gavel struck. Applause filled the New York Mansion ballroom. 300 powerful elites watched as the bride stepped into the spotlight. Ivory gown, veil covering her face, still as stone. Dominic leaned back in his chair, adjusting his cufflinks. The tattoos along his neck peeked above his collar. Simple transaction. Marriage meant stability. Stability meant control. Then the host lifted the veil. And Dominic froze. Not because she was beautiful. Not because the crowd gasped. But because he knew her. Short natural curls framed a face he had seen once before. In a courthouse hallway. 26 years ago. The night his father died. The night he stood there covered in blood, barely 18, pretending he wasn't afraid. And a little girl had watched him from across the hallway. Her mother had leaned toward him and whispered, "Don't let this world make you cruel." 3 days later, that woman was dead. Warehouse fire. Case closed. Dominic never investigated. He didn't have the luxury. Power demanded forward movement. But now, the girl stood on stage as his bride. And she was looking at him like she had been waiting for this moment. The crowd began whispering. Dominic stood slowly. His chair scraped loudly across the marble. The host shifted nervously. "Mr. Kane seems pleased." The bride stepped toward the microphone. "I'm honored," she said calmly. Her voice was steady, strong, not submissive. Her eyes never left Dominic's. "And I'm grateful he chose me." The crowd relaxed slightly. Then she finished. "Because now I can finally ask him what really happened that night." Silence. Utter silence. Victor stiffened behind Dominic. Phones were already lifting discreetly. Dominic stepped onto the stage. He stopped inches from her. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly. "What I've been preparing to do for 26 years, she replied. Her name echoed in his mind. Simone Brooks. He remembered now. Her mother had been a public defender. She had taken a case involving a financial network connected to his father's operations. After that case, fire. Insurance payout. Files sealed. Dominic lowered his voice. "You think I killed your mother?" "No," she said. That answer surprised him. "I think you trusted someone who did." That hit differently. Not accusation. Implication. The room buzzed. Dominic leaned closer. "You're playing a dangerous game." She didn't flinch. "I didn't come here to play." Security subtly began clearing space. The host forced a strained smile. "Perhaps we should proceed to the signing." Dominic extended his hand. Simone placed hers in it. Their fingers locked. Not romance. Not comfort. Strategy. They walked off stage together. Whispers followed them like smoke. Inside the private contract room, the door shut. The noise disappeared. Dominic turned toward her. "You positioned yourself to be chosen." "Yes." "You knew I would." "Yes." "How?" "Because men like you don't pick beauty," she said evenly. "You pick control." Accurate. Too accurate. She removed her veil completely. Set it on the table. The marriage contract lay between them. Untouched. "You could have confronted me publicly," Dominic said. "I still can." "Then why marry me?" Her answer was immediate. Proximity reveals truth. Dominic studied her carefully. This wasn't revenge fueled by emotion. This was investigation fueled by patience. "You believe someone inside my empire killed your mother," he said. "I believe someone benefited from her death." He crossed his arms. "And you think I didn't?" She held his gaze. "I think you were too busy surviving to notice." That struck deeper than anger. Because it was possible. His father's death had forced him into leadership overnight. Park San-ho had handled finances back then. Park had explained the warehouse fire as unrelated. Dominic had accepted it. He had been 18. Ruthless. Focused on consolidating power. Not auditing every shadow. A phone buzzed on the table. Dominic glanced at it. Unknown number. One message. "She knows too much." He didn't react outwardly. But Simone noticed the shift in his eyes. "They're watching," she said. "Yes. And they're afraid." Dominic's jaw tightened. No one tried to kill brides at auctions. Unless the bride threatened something far bigger. He looked back at her. "You just walked into a lion's den." She stepped closer. "I walked into the truth." He almost smiled. Almost. "You're not obedient," he said. "No." "You're not afraid." "No." "Good." He moved toward the contract. "If you're going to dig into my empire," he said quietly, "you do it as my wife." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You're agreeing?" "I'm curious." He slid the contract toward her. "Read it," he added. She sat, opened it, and began flipping pages immediately. Not nervous. Not intimidated. Methodical. Dominic watched closely. Most women signed without reading. Simone didn't skip a single line. She stopped at a clause. Tapped it lightly. "Lifetime silence." "Yes." She looked up. "Not happening." Victor shifted in the corner. "You're in no position to negotiate." She didn't look at him. "I negotiated my way into this room." Dominic leaned forward. "What do you want?" "Limited confidentiality. Independent finances. And access." "Access to what?" "Your archives." Victor stiffened. Dominic didn't. "You think the answer is in my records?" "I think the pattern is." He considered. Then crossed out the lifetime silence clause. Victor inhaled sharply. Dominic ignored him. He made 3 more edits. Then slid the contract back. "Sign." Simone read it again. Twice. Then signed her name. Dominic signed next. The ink dried. Marriage complete. Not romance. Alliance. Investigation. War preparation. Victor's phone buzzed. He stepped outside briefly. Returned pale. There was an attempted breach at the east gate during the auction. Dominic's expression hardened. "External." "Yes." Simone's voice was calm. "Not random." Dominic nodded slowly. Whoever feared her proximity had moved quickly. Too quickly. Which meant she was right. The truth wasn't buried. It was guarded. Dominic looked at Simone again. "For now," he said, "anyone who wants you gone answers to me." She stepped closer. "And anyone who betrayed my mother answers to both of us." Outside the mansion, sirens echoed faintly in the distance. Inside the contract room, 2 people stood facing each other. Not enemies. Not lovers. Not yet allies. But something far more dangerous. 2 survivors who had just realized. The real enemy had been inside the empire all along. And tonight, the hunt had officially begun. The morning after the auction, Dominic Kane's mansion felt different. Quieter. Not peaceful, tense. Security had doubled overnight. Every entrance reinforced. Every camera rechecked. The attempted breach at the East Gate hadn't made headlines. Dominic controlled the narrative. But internally, everyone knew. Someone had tested the perimeter. And that someone knew Simone Brooks was inside. Simone stood at the massive window in the East Wing bedroom, watching New York wake up. She wasn't overwhelmed by the mansion. She wasn't impressed. She wasn't intimidated. She was calculating. Behind her, the door opened without a knock. Dominic stepped in. Black dress shirt, sleeves rolled to the forearms, tattoos visible. "You sleep?" he asked. "Enough." He watched her posture. Straight. Steady. No fear. "You realize," he said calmly, "marrying me doesn't make you safer." "It makes me closer," she replied. "To what?" "The truth." Dominic walked farther into the room. "You're assuming the truth wants to be found." "It always surfaces," she said. "Especially when someone profits from burying it." That word again. Profits. Dominic's mind drifted to Park San-ho. For 20 years, Park had quietly expanded his financial control while Dominic handled enforcement. Dominic ruled the streets. Park ruled the money. At 18, Dominic hadn't questioned that division. He had been grieving, surviving, consolidating power. But now someone had tried to breach the estate the same night Simone entered his life. Too precise. Too immediate. "You want access to my archives," Dominic said. "Yes." "You'll have supervision." "Of course." A beat of silence. "You suspect Park," he said. "I suspect whoever gained the most after your father died." That answer was deliberate. She wasn't accusing blindly. She was building. Dominic nodded once. "Fine. You get access." The archive room was colder than the rest of the mansion. Metal cabinets. Digital servers. Old paper files preserved from Dominic's father's era. Simone stepped inside like a forensic analyst entering a crime scene. Not emotional. Methodical. Dominic stayed near the door. Watching. "You're looking for a connection between my father's death and your mother's," he said. "Yes." "Why assume they're linked?" She turned slightly. "Because timing matters." She opened a drawer labeled 1999, Financial Transfers. Her mother had died that same year. Dominic's father died 6 months earlier. Simone scanned the records. Large insurance payout. Rapid restructuring. Transfer of liquid assets into offshore accounts. Beneficiary oversight. Park Holdings. She paused. "Did you know about this?" she asked. Dominic stepped closer. He scanned the page. His jaw tightened. This was standard restructuring. "For someone who just lost control of an empire?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. Simone pulled another file. Warehouse Incident Report. Her mother's case notes attached, though redacted. The redaction signature? Park's legal division. Simone felt her pulse spike slightly. "Control it. Stay precise." She turned slowly toward Dominic. "Your father dies. Empire destabilizes. Insurance pays out. Park absorbs financial control. My mother investigates a related financial witness. She dies. Files sealed. Assets redistributed." Dominic's silence grew heavier. "You think he orchestrated both?" he said. "I think he needed chaos," she replied. "And chaos always benefits the one who manages the money." Dominic stepped back slightly. He wasn't angry. He was processing. If Park had manipulated both tragedies, then Dominic had unknowingly built his empire on someone else's design. That was unacceptable. That night, Dominic summoned Victor. "Pull Park's recent financial moves," he ordered. Victor hesitated. "That's dangerous." "So is ignorance." Victor left. Simone remained in the study. "You're not reacting emotionally," Dominic observed. She met his gaze. "I've had 26 years to process the emotion." That hit him harder than accusation ever could. "You've been planning this a long time." "Yes. And if you're wrong?" She didn't blink. "Then I lose everything." The honesty unsettled him. She wasn't reckless. She was committed. 2 days later, Victor returned. "You were right," he said quietly. Dominic looked up. "About what?" "Park has been shifting funds quietly for months. Moving liquid capital out of domestic channels." Simone stepped closer. "Preparing to disappear?" "Or preparing for exposure," Victor said. Dominic's eyes darkened. He knows, Simone said. Knows what? Victor asked. That we're looking. Dominic walked to the window. Park had been invisible for decades. Clean. Untouchable. But if he sensed threat, he would act. Simone turned toward Dominic. He won't attack you directly, she said. No. He'll isolate you first. Dominic nodded slowly. Political ties. Media connections. Regulatory influence. Park controlled the respectable side of power. Dominic controlled the shadows. If Park exposed Dominic publicly, he could cripple the organization. We don't attack him, Simone said calmly. Victor frowned. We wait. No, she corrected. We expose him. Dominic looked at her carefully. How? Publicly. Where he feels safest. 3 weeks later, an invitation circulated among New York's elite. Park San-ho's annual financial philanthropy gala. A room filled with politicians, media, investors, charity boards. The perfect stage. Simone stood in front of the mirror the night of the event. No veil this time. Just a sleek black gown. Dominic adjusted his jacket behind her. You understand, he said quietly, this ends one of 2 ways. Yes. Either he falls, or we do. Dominic studied her reflection. You don't hesitate. She turned slightly. I hesitated once. When my mother died. He nodded slowly. No more hesitation. At the gala, Park greeted them with a polished smile. Dominic, he said warmly. And your wife. Simone extended her hand. Park shook it. His grip lingered half a second too long. A warning. Simone smiled politely. Your foundation has done remarkable work, she said. Park's eyes flickered. Thank you. Dominic watched closely. Park looked relaxed. Confident. Too confident. Simone leaned slightly toward him. Especially in 1999, she added softly. Park's smile thinned. For a fraction of a second. He recovered immediately. I'm not sure what you mean. Simone's eyes didn't leave his. You will. Park excused himself shortly after. Victor leaned close. He's nervous. Good, Simone replied. Dominic studied her. You're sure? Yes. He exhaled slowly, then nodded once. Then we finish this. The ballroom glittered with wealth. Crystal chandeliers. Champagne towers. Politicians laughing too loudly. Investors pretending they didn't know where their money really came from. Park San-ho moved through the room like a king. Measured smile. Perfect posture. Immaculate tuxedo. He believed in visibility. Because powerful men who hid looked guilty. Powerful men who stood in the spotlight looked untouchable. Dominic Kane entered the gala 10 minutes late. Not by accident. He never arrived early. Simone walked beside him in a sleek black gown, calm as ever. The room shifted when they entered. Whispers followed instantly. They're here. After the auction incident. Why would he bring her? Park saw them immediately. His expression didn't change. But his eyes sharpened. He approached with open arms. Dominic, Park said warmly. And your wife. I was hoping you'd attend. Dominic offered a small nod. We wouldn't miss it. Simone smiled politely. Your foundations have done impressive work, she said. Park studied her carefully. I appreciate that. Her voice remained steady. Especially the restructuring efforts in 1999. There it was again. That year. Park's smile flickered, barely. But Dominic saw it. So did Simone. Park leaned closer. Careful, he murmured quietly. Curiosity can be dangerous. Simone met his gaze. Silence is more dangerous. Park straightened. Applause suddenly filled the room. It was time for the keynote address. Park stepped onto the stage. The room quieted. Ladies and gentlemen, he began smoothly, tonight we celebrate transparency, accountability, and ethical growth. Simone almost laughed. Dominic watched her instead of Park. He knew the look in her eyes. She was about to move. Park continued speaking about investments, expansion, international partnerships. Then he said something that shifted the air. True power, he added, comes from clean hands. Simone stepped forward. Without asking. Without hesitation. She walked toward the stage. Dominic didn't stop her. Victor stiffened behind him. Park noticed too late. Simone stepped beside the podium. "May I?" she asked calmly. The room froze. Park hesitated, then forced a smile. "Of course." He handed her the microphone. He thought he could control this. He was wrong. Simone turned to face the crowd. 300 powerful people. Phones ready. Media present. "This evening," she began clearly, "we've heard about transparency." Silence deepened. "I'd like to add context." A screen behind the stage flickered on. Park's smile faded. Dominic had arranged that. Simone didn't waste time. 26 years ago, she continued, a warehouse fire was ruled accidental. Images appeared behind her. Insurance reports. Transfer statements. Financial redistribution charts. Murmurs erupted. Simone kept going. That same year, a criminal organization restructured after its leader's sudden death. More documents appeared. This restructuring transferred significant liquid assets into private financial oversight controlled by one entity. She turned slowly. Park stood frozen. Park Holdings. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Park stepped forward sharply. "These are reckless accusations." "They're public filings," Simone interrupted calmly. Dominic stepped onto the stage now. The room inhaled collectively. Dominic Kane standing publicly against his own financial partner? Unheard of. Simone continued. Insurance payout from the warehouse incident redirected through shell accounts. Those accounts absorbed into Park Holdings within 30 days. The screen displayed transaction chains. Clear. Undeniable. "Coincidence?" she asked softly. Park's composure began cracking. "You think this implicates me in a fire?" he snapped. Simone's voice remained level. "No." She paused deliberately. "I think you needed chaos." Silence. "You needed Dominic Kane's father dead." The room exploded with whispers. "And you needed my mother gone," she added. Park's face hardened. "You have no proof of murder." Simone looked at Dominic. He nodded once. The final document appeared. A signed legal redaction order. Park's private legal division had sealed witness testimony connected to Simone's mother's case. Dated 3 days before the fire. The room turned hostile instantly. Phones recorded openly now. Park's polished image began dissolving in real time. "You're manipulating narrative," Park hissed. Simone stepped closer. "You manipulated history." Park looked at Dominic. "You're going to let her destroy us?" Dominic's voice was cold. "You destroyed us first." That landed like a gunshot. Park's breathing grew shallow. He realized something crucial. Dominic wasn't confused. He wasn't uncertain. He had chosen a side. Simone stepped back from the microphone. "I don't want applause," she said calmly. "I want investigation." As if summoned by timing itself, federal investigators entered through the side doors. Quiet. Prepared. Not dramatic. Park turned slowly. "You coordinated this," he said to Dominic. Dominic didn't deny it. Park's empire had always relied on perception. Now perception was collapsing. Investors backed away. Politicians distanced themselves physically. Cameras zoomed in. Park attempted composure. "You think removing me cleans your hands?" he asked Dominic. Dominic stepped closer. "No," he said quietly. "It stops the bleeding." Park was escorted away. No shouting. No resistance. Just the quiet fall of a man who believed himself untouchable. The ballroom didn't celebrate. It dissolved. Chaos in whispers. Headlines forming in real time. Dominic stood beside Simone on the emptying stage. You just detonated half of Manhattan's financial circle, he said. Simone exhaled slowly. No. She looked at him. We removed the architect. Dominic studied her face. No triumph. No vengeance. Just resolve. Victor approached cautiously. It's spreading already, he said, holding up his phone. News outlets were posting. Financial boards reacting. Markets adjusting. Park's stock influence dropping by the minute. Dominic turned toward Simone. You knew this would destabilize everything. Yes. And you did it anyway. She met his eyes. You chose me knowing I wasn't silent. He almost smiled. Almost. Outside the gala venue, reporters had already gathered. Dominic guided Simone toward the exit. Not possessive. Protective. Flashbulbs erupted as they stepped outside. Questions shouted. Mr. Kane, is it true you turned on your own partner? Mrs. Kane, are these personal accusations? Simone didn't answer. Dominic didn't either. They entered the car. Doors closed. Silence filled the interior. For the first time since the auction, there was no external threat. Just aftermath. Dominic looked at Simone carefully. You've been patient your entire life, he said. Yes. And now? She looked out at the city lights. Now we see who else benefited. Dominic's jaw tightened. Park might be falling. But systems like his didn't collapse alone. If Park had operated this long, others had enabled him. Others had profited. The war wasn't over. It had just changed form. Dominic leaned back in the seat. You understand, he said quietly, you've made enemies that don't show their faces. She turned toward him. I've had invisible enemies since I was 12. That answer silenced him. As the car drove into Manhattan's night, Dominic Kane realized something profound. He had built his empire through fear. Simone had just shaken it with truth. And truth was far more destabilizing. Park San-ho didn't fall loudly. He disappeared. Within 48 hours of the gala, federal investigations froze his assets. Offshore accounts were flagged. Shell companies audited. Political allies distanced themselves publicly. The headlines were careful. Financial irregularities. Possible corporate misconduct. Pending investigation. But in private circles everyone knew. Park had been exposed. And Dominic Kane had allowed it. That was the real shock. Because Dominic Kane had never turned on his own. Until now. 3 weeks later, the Kane mansion felt different. Not tense. Strategic. Dominic stood in his office overlooking Manhattan. City lights glowing beneath him. Victor entered quietly. The fallout is stabilizing, Victor said. Some investors are nervous. Let them be, Dominic replied. You're shutting down 2 shipping channels. They were Park-controlled. Victor hesitated. And the offshore accounts? Closed. Victor stared at him. You're dismantling half the structure your father built. Dominic's jaw tightened slightly. No, he corrected. I'm dismantling what Park corrupted. This wasn't weakness. This was recalibration. For the first time in decades, Dominic wasn't reacting. He was rebuilding. Simone sat at the long dining table surrounded by documents. Not crime ledgers. Charitable filings. Foundation paperwork. The clause she negotiated in the marriage contract had activated immediately after the gala. The Kane Foundation. Legal aid. Education grants. Victim support programs. Dominic entered the room. You're serious about this, he observed. Yes. You think this redeems anything? No. She looked up at him. I think it prevents repetition. Dominic studied her. She wasn't naive. She didn't believe charity erased blood. But it redirected power. That mattered. 2 months passed. Park remained under investigation. Several mid-level executives were indicted. Financial boards restructured. Dominic's organization shifted quietly. Less street-level violence. More legitimate logistics. Less visible intimidation. More silent influence. The underworld noticed. Some respected it. Some questioned it. Dominic didn't care. He wasn't trying to impress criminals. He was trying to future-proof survival. One evening, Simone stood alone in the East Wing bathroom. The test sat on the counter. 2 lines. Clear. Unmistakable. She didn't cry. She didn't panic. She sat on the edge of the tub for several minutes. Processing. This hadn't been part of her original plan. Her original plan was exposure. Truth. Closure. Not permanence. She walked into Dominic's office. He was reviewing financial projections. He looked up immediately. Something in her expression shifted the air. "What happened?" he asked. She closed the door. No hesitation. "I went to the doctor today." Dominic stood slowly. "And?" She held his gaze. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Real silence. Not the strategic kind. Not the tense kind. The kind that rearranges a man internally. Dominic didn't move for several seconds. Then he exhaled slowly. "You're sure?" "Yes." He walked toward her carefully, as if approaching something fragile. Dominic Kane had survived assassination attempts. He had ordered executions. He had built an empire out of blood and leverage. But this unsettled him more than violence ever had. "I don't know how to be that man," he admitted quietly. Simone's voice was steady. "You learned to survive without a father." A pause. "Now you get to choose differently." That landed deeper than anything she had said at the gala. Dominic placed his hand gently against her stomach. Not possessive. Protective. Something changed in his posture in that moment. Not softer. Stronger. Because now he wasn't just defending territory. He was defending a future. 3 weeks later, Dominic announced something that stunned his inner circle. He was formalizing all remaining operations into legitimate infrastructure. Construction. Logistics. Security contracting. Every criminal channel was being phased out or redirected. Victor stared at him in disbelief. "You're turning into a businessman." "I always was," Dominic replied. "I just operated in the wrong rooms." "And the people who won't accept this shift?" Dominic's eyes hardened. "They can leave. Or they could try something worse." That night, a black envelope arrived at the mansion gate. No return address. No fingerprints. Security scanned it. No explosive residue. Dominic opened it personally. Inside, a single photograph, taken from a distance. Simone exiting a medical building. Circled in red. On the back, 4 words. "Empires don't reform." Dominic's jaw tightened slowly. He handed it to Simone. She studied it calmly. "They're watching," she said. "Yes." "Not Park." "No." This wasn't about financial power anymore. This was ideological. There were others who preferred the old Dominic. The ruthless one. The predictable one. A reformed king was dangerous. Because he was harder to manipulate. Dominic walked to the window. Manhattan stretched endlessly below. Lights flickering like nerves. "They think reform is weakness," he said. Simone stepped beside him. "Is it?" He shook his head slowly. "No." His voice lowered. "It's evolution." He turned toward her. "Anyone who thinks this empire can't change," he continued quietly, "is about to learn what I do when someone threatens my family." Not loud. Not dramatic. Just certainty. Simone studied him carefully. "You're different," she said. He nodded once. "You made me look back." A long silence passed between them. But it wasn't heavy. It was solid. Park had fallen. The financial architect had been exposed. The foundation was operational. A child was coming. And enemies were circling again. But this time, Dominic Kane wasn't reacting blindly. He was prepared. He turned toward the desk. Pulled out his phone. Sent a single message to his most trusted internal operative. "Find who took the photo." Then he looked back at Simone. "They wanted a war," he said calmly. They just don't realize I'm not fighting for power anymore. A pause. I'm fighting for legacy. Outside the mansion, Manhattan pulsed with life. Inside, the Mafia boss who once chose an obedient bride stood beside the woman who rewrote his empire. And somewhere in the city, someone realized too late that attacking Dominic Kane's family was far more dangerous than attacking his throne.